In 30 minutes, we'll cover 10 of the most dangerous cults right here in America. Here's our list right up front. Number 1, the divine feminine in Taylor Swift. Number 2, transhumanism and artificial intelligence. Number 3, DMT and the astral realm. Number 4, Burning Man. Number 5, neo-paganism. Number 6, the occult. Number 7, the Greys. Number 8, Scientology. Number 9, Mormonism. And number 10, Jehovah's Witnesses. We're going to spend about 3 minutes per cult. Here we go.
Applying God's Word to every aspect of life. This is Theology Applied.
Welcome back to another episode of Theology Applied. I am your host, Pastor Joel Webben, here with Right Response Ministries, and today I am very privileged to welcome back to the show. It is technically their second time, but it's been probably a couple years since we've had you guys on the show. We've got Andrew and Jeremiah, both part of Apologia Church, two separate Apologia churches, but sister churches. One is a plant of the other, and they are the co-host of a show that you're probably familiar with. It's called Cultish. Guys, thanks for coming on.
Glad to be here, man.
Yeah, I'm excited, man.
Well, this is what we want to do. So this is kind of, it's two functions here. We're trying to achieve two purposes simultaneously. One is we're giving people a heads up. It's a bit of a teaser, a trailer for a recording project that the three of us are going to be doing together. So with Right Response Ministries, we've started this year a show on Fridays that we call the Friday Special. And instead of it just being a singular episode, it is a season-based show. And so we have a new season every quarter. So for Q1, we've been doing the Boniface option with Andrew Isker and A.D. Robles and myself. Q2 is going to be coming out in April. So that's right around the corner. And that's with Haunted Cosmos, Brian Sauvé and Ben Garrett. And Q3, thanks to you guys being gracious enough to oblige, is with Cultish. And so it's going to be the three of us. And the goal is to do a whole season, a 10-part season, 10 episodes where we devote an hour in each episode to some major cults and false religions. So what I'd like to do today is, one, put this on people's radar. Subscribe to our channel. If you're not subscribed already, click the bell so you'll be alerted when we come out with new content so that you can catch this quarter 3 of the Friday Special with Cultish. But today I was thinking, I wonder if, and I don't even know if we could do it. It's up to you guys and if you're up for the challenge, but I wonder if we could do the short version. I wonder if we could just give all our secrets away and just let them know these are the 10 cults that we're going to cover, all 10 of them, all 10 episodes that you'll get longer form, 60 minutes thorough on each of them, but give all 10 of them today in about half an hour and take just a couple minutes on each one to explain this is what it is, this is why it's bad. Do you think we could do that?
We should, man. Jerry, let's go.
Let's go for it. Let's go.
Let's go, Divine.
All right.
Let's go first one, Divine Feminine and Taylor Swift, Jerry.
Boom.
Taylor Swift and the Divine Feminine. So we are going to kick things off into high gear when we are in Austin, Texas with you in April. So we are going to be talking about Taylor Swift. Now, why would we be talking about that in a show called Cultish? Well, what's very interesting is that I've just, people have been messaging us, DMing us specifically. There's a lot of people in my sphere and realm who believe that Taylor Swift is a witch, believe it or not, and they believe that a lot of her music is actually like casting spells on people. It's very interesting. There's people who have had a record of going to their concerts and having complete amnesia, not remember anything, and then leaving later on. But a lot of that, honestly, is somewhat speculative. We'll kind of go into like why people believe that, but a lot of it is very speculative. However, what Taylor Swift as a whole, as a person, as an artist, and also just as a piece of propaganda, and especially how the West is being conditioned through her, she is really being utilized as a symbol to advocate for the divine feminine, which really has to deal with where the West is right now as far as pushing neo-paganism. Now, when I talk about that, there's a reason why when you go into a magazine store, you'll have 10 different magazines, all separate from each other, but they all have Taylor on the cover. There's purpose and intent behind that. And you better believe that what her lyrics are, what they say, who she is as a person, she is already having huge amount of influence. I know people in my sphere of people within my inner family of kids who are 5, 6 years old who want to be like Taylor Swift when they grow up. that's the sort of influence that she's having. Now, is there a fundamental worldview behind that? We're going to jump into and explore that. So I'm really looking forward to unpacking that. I mean, just the thumbnail in and of itself is going to get a lot of attention. So I'm really excited to unpack that.
Right. Awesome. Okay. Number 2, transhumanism and artificial intelligence. Andrew.
I'm excited. Yeah, I'm excited for this one. This is something that needs to be talked about, right? Like everyone's using ChatGPT today. There's Midjourney where you can get art from. Even ChatGPT has a form of art that they're using. But when we think about transhumanism, we're thinking about the fact that in Christianity, we know the wages of sin is death, right? However, humanity has been trying to figure out ways through their own means in order to circumvent death in order to live forever. So transhumanism in the sense of projecting your own consciousness into a software system, if that is something that is even possible. They have their own philosophical framework. Whether or not that their philosophical framework is true, we know that biblical Christianity is true, and there's certain things, that God probably would not allow to happen in this world. But transhumanism and artificial intelligence is a topic that needs to be talked about. We know Elon Musk just successfully implanted the Neuralink chip in a brain, and it starts off with medical. It's used for medical reasons, like for people who are blind or whatnot, just to try to help them, which is great. But the main purpose of it would be to give a faster symbiotic relationship between artificial intelligence and the human condition. So we all have a bandwidth, right, that we work with. And the way I communicate with my phone, I already have a symbiotic relationship with it, but it's as fast as I can push in the buttons in order to get to Google. But imagine if that bandwidth was so much faster and I could just think in my brain, be connected to this cloud network that gives me information. Right. So when we think about transhumanism, artificial intelligence, we have the world trying to represent and create something that's omniscient, omnipresent, and omnipotent, right? The attributes of God within a software or system. So we want to speak about that. We want to breathe truth into that within even a post-millennial framework on how we can use these things to the glory of God. But keep us focused and solid and in the Word of God, thinking about transhumanism and artificial intelligence. I'm excited about that topic right there.
Really well done, Andrew. The only thing I would add to that is, so personally, I'll go ahead and show my hand. I don't think they can pull it off. I don't think God in His providence will allow them. I do believe that we'll have elongated lifespans per Isaiah 65, the great post-millennial hope. The youth dies at 100. But the transhumanism thing, I don't think they'll pull it off. But somebody will get good enough at artificial intelligence to be able to emulate someone's personality to where their loved ones can, for a handsome fee, see their conscience uploaded to, but it's not the person is consciously under the torments of hell forever. But the appearance of through AI of their personality and their memories and all this kind of stuff has been uploaded to the cloud. And so it's like I'm going on a virtual visit to my daughter-in-law, who passed away in a car accident last month. And it's so great to know that she's still with us. That ain't her.
Yeah, I'm on the same page as you, man.
Yep. All right. There you go. Wait. We'll have more to talk about. I feel like
digital necromancy. It's going to be a fun time.
Whoa, there digital necromancy. That's fire, bro.
Yeah, coin that phrase. That's good. Okay, back to you, Jeremiah, number 3.
We are going to be talking about part 3 will be DMT and the astral realm. So what we are going to be really tapping into is that the usage of psychedelics, psychoactive substances, psilocybin mushrooms, DMT, all of the sorts, those have been popularized by different podcasts. People like Jordan Peterson, people like Joe Rogan, people like Russell Brand. A lot of the major large platform influencers have made a huge emphasis on psychedelic use. It's really become normalized. Something that you would have been seen as fringe probably 20, 30 years ago, now is becoming something that's super normal. People like Aaron Rodgers, who is a quarterback now for the New York Jets, even though he played, like one game, like he sprained his ankle, he's been a huge advocate for the usage of DMT, psychedelics, doing ayahuasca. Something that usually would see somewhere down South America is now being normalized. You have people like Machine Gun Kelly, Megan Fox, going down to and doing these ayahuasca retreats where they think that somehow they're on some super spiritual experience. What's always interesting, the reason why we're calling it DMT and the astral realm is that people are saying, oh, you can take DMT for your different mental health, clarity, for dealing with anxiety, dealing with PTSD. But the one thing that always comes on the other side is contacting the other side, crossing over onto something. All of them advocate that they end up somewhere in contact with something on the other side. And so I think as Christians, it's something that we should not shy away from, but we should have answers for, because the way the world is headed, we want to have apologetic answers for that. Is taking something like that a Christian, something a Christian should do? Is this different than taking a pharmaceutical? Is this different than taking an aspirin? That's what we're going to talk about. So I'm very excited to unpack that.
In a world where giants like Google and Microsoft reign supreme, there emerges a new challenger, a beacon of hope in the digital landscape, introducing Paxmail, the email company that's rewriting the rules of the game. Say goodbye to data mining and intrusive ads, because at Paxmail, your privacy is our top priority. But that's just the beginning. With our Docs and Drive features, you'll experience seamless collaboration like never before. Whether you're working solo or with a team, Paxmail has got you covered. And here's the kicker. All the founders are Christian abortion abolitionists through and through. Our commitment to fostering a digital environment that respects all life is unwavering. That means no algorithms pushing harmful content, no tracking your every move, just a clean, based space for you to thrive. Paxmail, empowering you to take back control of your digital life. Sign up today at paxmail.cc and experience the difference. Again, that's paxmail.cc. Sign up today. Now, our next episode, number 4, is going to be Burning Man.
Yeah, so I'll just jump into Burning Man.
I say the same vein because I imagine a lot of people at Burning Man are strung out on drugs.
Yes, yeah, a lot of drug usage there, and a lot of just, and even there's a lot of DMT, ayahuasca workshops. I have interviewed people on the podcast, people who are former Burning Man attendees, people who are on the front lines actually doing ministry at Burning Man, who are Christians who have set up their own camp there to interact and engage with people in that world. And I think one of the things you'll realize too is that people see Burning Man as not just a bunch of hippies out in the desert. You're now looking at a place where some of the most prominent influencers in the world, people who are the tech giants of Silicon Valley, they now all go out there, and it's really become sort of this new hubbub where it's almost sort of like the pagan Mount Sinai, where they go out there, they bring all their different burn camps together, and they formulate and they gather together and they collaborate with their ideas of how they're going to spread this message of oneism and go ye into all the world. So you really have, if you think about, if you remember the old school, I'm an old school video gamer, you have Wario, who's the opposite of Mario. This is like the Wario Great Commission, where this is the Wario Transfiguration, the Wario Great Commission, where let's go out, let's have this pinnacle Burning Man. That's sort of that's the Transfiguration. Now let's go into all the world, spread our ideology. It's not just some party. There's fundamental worldviews being taught that are totally antithetical to ours, and it's something that's going to affect on every sphere, from the economic sphere to the political sphere. And as you very much attest to, Joel, that the Lordship of Christ entails every aspect of life. They believe that wholeheartedly in regards to their worldview encompassing every part of their life. And that's what you see allocated in Burning Man. So I think the more people become aware of what's going on, the more we'll understand how to engage and reach that group and how to respond to the ideas and the ideology coming out of Burning Man.
Great. Andrew, can you do number 5 and 6? Number 5, neo-paganism. Number 6, the occult.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I'm thinking of neo-paganism, I'm thinking typically in the terms of what is becoming extremely popular today, because in our society, I like to say this, that we're living in an age where we have the rejection of atheism from the bastard sons of atheism, right? Rejection of the material, and the pendulum is swinging so far the other direction that they're searching for spiritual answers to spiritual questions that they couldn't have answered from their parents. The Renaissance has died and paganism is trying to rebirth. There's a resurrection of the dead gods that is trying to take place today. So when I'm thinking about neo-paganism, we're thinking of Wicca, Druidry, Asatru, which would be a form of Odinism. These types of worships that have quote-unquote ancient forms that we have actual no primary or contemporary sources for, other than some forms of archaeology. But we need to be able to have a response to neo-paganism within the world that we're living today, because these people are truly looking for spiritual answers when they really couldn't get the questions from their parents, man. That's what it is. And there's a form of emotionalism.
Who am I?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. All of those
things.
That's good. Yeah, it's an emotional pull, and Christianity is the only one that has the answers, because in Colossians 2, it states that Jesus Christ dethroned all of these powers when he resurrected from the grave. So these things have no power at all. Jesus Christ is king, and it's extremely important to talk about. But going on to that, we have the occult when we're thinking about the ancient dead religions, or for example, there's something called Hermeticism. And from Hermeticism, there's a book called the Corpus Hermeticum. And the Corpus Hermeticum is where we get phrases such as above, so below. It's where we get the forms of alchemy that were formed. And Hermeticism, in a nutshell, was really popular around the Ptolemaic era of the Egyptian dynasty, when the Greeks were, in charge of the Egyptians at that time. And it was a really amalgamation between Egyptian magic and Greek thought, and it created Hermeticism. So from Hermeticism, we also get modern forms of neo-paganism, because the books were rediscovered in the 1400s. They were translated into Latin, and alchemy comes from it. And we need to talk about that today, because these are things that are taking place in our society that comes from neo-paganism, and it also is something that has actually influenced Mormonism. So very interesting stuff.
Very interesting. Okay, Jeremiah, number 7, the Greys.
The Greys. So what you're going to find out here, even with all the topics you've covered, we've even mentioned we're going to be covering, is that every single one of these are all interconnected on some level. So when you really talk about the Greys, this is really connected to the whole alien UFO conversation. And one thing that's been very interesting, I feel like we've been on this sort of needle, this catalyst needle throughout the time of our podcast, starting to sort of sound the alarm bell, saying, hey, this UFO conversation's serious. This isn't just a bunch of a couple nerds in their basements sort of having, seeing things or claiming that they did. That's all hearsay. Right now, you have people everyone from officials in the highest levels of government to F-16 fighter pilots to people who are taking this very seriously, who have had encounters with these and know that they want to be able to give an answer to these. And what's always really interesting behind the whole UFO conversation is that what always comes as a byproduct of these encounters is the fundamental fragmentation of the person's previous assertion about the nature of reality, the afterlife, what their beliefs are. That always deeply affects them, who they are at their very, very core. And it's something that is, there was actually a recent documentary that came out called Moment of Contact. Because a lot of times people will say that, oh, well, all the UFO conversation, that's just a bait and switch for the Biden administration to distract from whatever's going on. But the reality is that the whole UFO conversation is way bigger than that. It's gone across multiple administrations the last 50 years, both Republican and Democrat. But just for example, this documentary is about these this alien encounter, this alien crash that occurred in a place called Varginha, Brazil, and and everyone in this entire town attests that these weird gray aliens that had strange matter, certain people who handled them, that apparently died not long after that. The whole town swears by it, but every single one has every single person who had this encounter, it's affected who they are, what they believe about everything, including faith. So I think that when it comes to the Greys, yeah.
I was just going to ask for a moment. That's super helpful, but I heard another, maybe it's the same story, or maybe it's another one, which would be crazy if there were two accounts like this, but there was some African country, I forget the country, but it was a school, a private school. I think it was like a Christian school. Is this what you're talking about? And all the students, they saw an alien. They say they saw an alien, and one of the teachers, he now denies it and says that's not true, that's ridiculous, you know, that couldn't have happened. But he claimed initially to have seen it too, and so a few other teachers as well, and it's like 50, 60 students. But the thing is, like, as you and now it's like 20 years removed, they're all grown up, or maybe it's 30 years removed, so it's a long time later. But they've done interviews with each of these, the teachers and all the students individually, and with a lot of the students without them even having interacted over the last 30 years, or conferred with one another to sync up their stories. But aside from them describing the event, they have the same testimony of the description, the physical description of the event and what they saw. But more significant, and to me more alarming than that, is they also all talk about, oh, and by the way, climate change is really dangerous, and we should really care about the environment, and a one world, world peace, and one world order, and is that a separate account, or is that what you were describing, Jeremiah? the same story.
If I'm not mistaken, I believe there are two separate instances.
Wow.
There's an appearance of a school in Africa. But there's also an appearance over in Brazil, and so
Okay.
those
And
those
you were
things
talking about
completely.
Brazil.
Yes, yeah,
Wow.
and so and it just goes to show that just those sorts of even if you're not the students per se that have this encounter that's stuck with you and has been part of your story of who you are on Earth for 30 years, people who start going down this rabbit trail start getting really interested in the UFO conversation. It always leads to the interest in alien contact when it comes to the UFO sightings and all the evidence that's out there. That's no here nor there. But what always comes about as a byproduct of the interest in UFOs is the interest in alien contact. Now, what sort of information for those who try and do alien contact? What sort of info are you end up getting? Are you getting interesting, technological developments with how their spacecraft works? Or are you going to learn how to make a PlayStation 9 ahead of time so you can play the top level virtual reality games or something? Like, no. What it always ends up being is some sort of info about it's some sort of spiritual download. Okay,
It's theology.
who was it's theological in nature. Is
Right.
Jesus really the Son of God? Like, and so there's always that's always where it goes. And so the only way to really ultimately do the type of alien contact is do a CE5 disclosure, which is a close encounter of the fifth kind. So when you'll see people like the Sean Ryan show, who's got a broad variety of people, very huge, a large amount of influence, when he has somebody on like Dr. Stephen Greer, and he talks about his experience with working with governmental agencies, but the main thing that he really promotes and advocates is close encounters of the fifth kind, which are really doing these occultic seances to get in contact, to contact the other side, which God forbids. You're literally doing an occult. He ends up doing like this occultic ritual, and he's taken people like Demi Lovato, who was very much seeking, trying to make sense of her life, being a young woman. And he walked her through the whole CE5 encounter disclosure, and she became a true believer in that. And where has she gone now? She's now, changed her gender multiple times. She went from being binary to non-binary. Even most recently, one of her most recent videos too was this one really just sort of celebrating the right for her, the right to abortion. Like, it's in her video. It's completely satanic, demonic. And so you see like the fruits of like where she went. She was led through this encounter by Dr. Stephen Greer to see the CE5 encounter, which the footage is out there that we could talk about. And these are the fruits that come about of it. Like Tom DeLonge, who is very heavily involved with To the Stars Academy, he talks about the same thing. He's always been interested in UFOs. He went out with Dr. Stephen Greer out in the desert towards Area 51, Nevada, and lo and behold, he went through the whole process, and all of a sudden he woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning, which is always surprising, always the witching hour, and all of a sudden he starts getting in contact with what he calls little green men. But even the nature of that encounter was spiritual in nature. It wasn't some physical being saying, "Hey, let me show you some sort of elevated technology. Let me show you some new way to grow food sustainably." That's not it. It's always spiritual in nature. So when it comes to the Greys, the UFO conversation, I mean, that could be a 10-part series in and of itself. But
Wow.
that's
Yeah.
where it always goes to. So I think we'll have fun tackling that.
Awesome.
Can I say something on top of
Go
that
ahead.
too?
Yeah.
So real quick. So what's interesting about the Greys as well is you can go back in history all the way to John Dee, Emanuel Swedenborg, up to Stephen Greer. The CE5 techniques, the occult practices that are being used actually stem from the Corpus Hermeticum. No joke. And we can go back and see that there's conversations with these quote unquote spiritual beings that want a one world government, or they're telling specific types of information to these individuals that is antithetical to the Christian worldview and the rule and reign of Jesus Christ. So I just want to add that there.
Wow.
It's really interesting stuff.
Are you a Christian struggling to find companies that align with your values and beliefs? Well, then Squirrelly Joe's has you covered for all your coffee needs. All of their coffee is hand-selected and roasted fresh every day by a family of fellow believers. Try them out and you'll savor exceptional coffee while knowing that your investment supports a company committed to following God's teachings and upholding truth and righteousness, ensuring that your hard-earned money contributes to the growth of God's kingdom. So head on over to squirrellyjoes.com/right response
Enter promo code RRM at checkout for 20% off your purchase.
Number 8, Scientology. Who wants to take that?
Yes.
I'll talk about Scientology real quick. So
Yep.
we've got Scientology, L. Ron Hubbard. If anyone is very interested in some of the things that L. Ron Hubbard believed, you will get a kick out of it. Go to YouTube and just watch some of the things he talks about. There's some black and white videos. Scientology is a classic cult within America that has roots that are poisonous, right? It's destroyed lives. It's antithetical to the Christian worldview. It believes that you can come to a knowledge of a freedom, essentially, to where you can actually manipulate matter, energy, space, and time as an operating fate. And it's called the bridge to total freedom. But here's the thing is you can never get to the end level, right? There's always something more that needs to take place. And I believe last time I checked, to become an operating Thetan, it took about $500,000 to $750,000 in order to get the classes, just to become someone who is cleared of their Thetans. And that is essentially to be clear of your sins. And the way you do that is you go through auditing with an auditor, where you're holding onto 2 tin metal cans and they're talking to you about your life or your past life. And when they're asking you questions, probing questions, and if the needle probes, it looks like something right there is triggering your Thetans. So they'll dig deeper and they'll dig deeper and they'll gather a file on you. And in that file on you, they have all of the dirt on you that they need from this life and your past life, in order to become an operating Thetan one day, to be clear of all of those sins. And so we want to talk about L. Ron Hubbard. We want to talk about Scientology, and we just want to shine a light and expose the darkness that there is there so we can see that cult crumble. I believe that's a cult we can see crumble within our lifetime, so we need to talk about it.
Awesome. Okay, and then now, number 9 and 10, the last two, Mormonism and Jehovah's Witnesses. Jeremiah?
Yeah, so Mormonism would also be just a pinnacle example, but even with all of the, what it has in common with all the other episodes and content is syncretism. It's taking all these different worldviews, different ideas, worldviews, mishmashing them together. It's exactly what Joseph Smith did. He took a lot of what was going on around his time. He took a lot of the theories going around when he was growing up in Palm Island in New York about supposedly that people had come from the Americas, had dug plates, golden plates, up on the Hill Cumorah. And so you have him combining all these different like folklore together. You have combining aspects of Freemasonry. I mean, it's one of those things. It's so fascinating. It's the history behind it just in and of itself. I mean, you get from a point of historically, even now, you think about a Mormon who is very patriotic, who loves America, has that sort of typical white picket fence, has a shiny happy person, to kind of like do a play of words. Well, the reality is that even like the second president of the United States, Brigham Young, like he declared war like on the United States. Like there is a position to where they are going to be ostracized to Mexico if they didn't renounce polygamy. It's one of the most influential cults in the Western world, specifically in the 1800s. It's one of the most influential ones that really, even today. And the one thing that's really what we're going to talk about, just syncretism, how it's continually evolved, how it's continually changed, and even now, like the last 20 years, I barely even recognize like if I could take the Mormons I interacted with when I was in high school and introduce them to the Mormons today, if the multiverse was real, they would be shocked. They would not be in disbelief how many of them are postmodern, don't even believe in absolute truth, don't even believe in Joseph Smith anymore, that all Christian creeds are an abomination in God's sight. And so what you really have now, what we'll talk about is in Mormonism, is this duality between the modern-day Mormon church that is now become postmodern, and a lot because they've gone so far away from their original teachings. You have a lot of fundamentalist Mormons like the FLDS and a lot of these other splintering groups who now have become radicalized and said, hey, even though Mormonism, for example, they believe that the church fell away in the 1800s, Joseph Smith had to come back and restore the church. They now believe the restoration needs a restoration. So it's almost as if reincarnation is being introduced now to their worldview, to within the church. So you have the modern day Mormon church who's become a lot more liberal, a lot more progressive. There's a huge duality not only between the church, between the men who are all patriarchal white men in their 80s and 90s who are running all of it, versus you have the younger generation 40 down under, who are a lot more progressive, a lot more open down to the whole idea of transgenderism, all the modern day zeitgeist. Like Andrew would attest during June, during Pride Month, all of downtown Salt Lake, it's just a plethora of different of just the pride and transgender flags, just because they are completely congruent with the current zeitgeist of the age. And it has to do with the fact that Mormonism is always syncretizing upon itself. And so the Mormonism has created radicals such as Mark Hoffman. If you look, Mark Hoffman and the Mormon Murders, a guy who was radicalized, who forged a bunch of documents that fooled the Mormon Church into it. I mean, it's a whole true crime episode in and of itself that Netflix did, which led to actually a car bomb that happened in downtown Salt Lake. You have the story of Under the Banner of Heaven, which, Andrew, my mind's running blank. What were the name of the two brothers?
The Lafferty brothers.
The Lafferty brothers. These murders that took place based off of this Mormon doctrine of blood atonement, they believed needed to be part of the restoration. And so you're always having this continual evolving and syncretizing and reinventing of Mormonism. But then you have people who want to hold on to the older reinvented version, creating this constant duality. So I think that in of itself, along with just some of the basic fascinating stories behind how Mormon really influenced the 1800s and the 19th century, and even the 20th century, we're very fascinated to talk about it. It's one of our favorite subjects.
Cool. All right. Last, Jehovah's Witnesses.
Yep. Jehovah's Witnesses, like Mormonism, is part of the Restoration movement. The Restoration movement basic premises is that we, the Church of Jesus Christ, went into an apostasy and it needed to be restored, just like the Campbellites believed that. Joseph Smith believed that. Charles Taze Russell also was a proponent of that. So Charles Taze Russell is the founder of the Jehovah's Witnesses. He was also formerly a leader of an offshoot of a Millerite group. Miller believed that the end of the world was supposed to happen at a specific time. It didn't happen. And so there was groups that branched off of there. One other founder from the group of the Millerites was Ellen G. White, who created the Seventh-day Adventists. Another branch from that was Charles Taze Russell, who founded the Jehovah's Witnesses. And I'm sure everyone who's listening has probably had a Jehovah's Witness knock on their door. A lot of them, I think they need to do around 80 hours a month. I need to look that up again. However, it's something that needs to be talked about, because these people really do know their doctrine, because they'll twist you into a doctrinal pretzel pretty quick on John 1 if you're not pretty well versed in it. However, we need to be able to have a reasonable defense. We need to talk about the history. We need to talk about the failed end times prophecies. And we also need to talk about how many of them don't believe that they'll actually be in heaven when they die, that the 144,000 people that they believe in have already came, and there's no room for any more that'll be in heaven. So interesting stuff. I want to leave us with that. I don't want to go too deep into it, but I'm very excited to be doing this.
Awesome. All right, that's it. So just one more recap. We've got number 1, the Divine Feminine and Taylor Swift. That'll be the first episode. Number 2, transhumanism and artificial intelligence. Number 3 is DMT and the astral realm. Number 4, Burning Man. Number 5, neo-paganism. Number 6, the occult. Number 7, the Greys. Number 8, Scientology. Number 9, Mormonism, and number 10, Jehovah's Witnesses. So those are going to be the 10 episodes. We're going to have Jeremiah and Andrew fly them out here, and this is going to be Q3. So it'll be, July, August, and September of this year, the year of our Lord 2024. So be looking out for that. Again, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so that you'll be notified when we come out with all that. Before this third quarter, we've got the second quarter. That's going to be Haunted Cosmos with Brian Sauvé and Ben Garrett. So we've got lots of great content coming out for you guys, and we wanted to give you just a little bit of a teaser, appetizer, just to get your appetite building for this new series. And I've followed these guys and their podcast for a while. You guys do great work. Jeremiah and Andrew, thank you so much for your ministry. There's a lot of deception, as you know, and you guys have been willing to go into the belly of the beast and expose the darkness. It's not just, yes, the old adage of the way you can tell a fake, dollar bill is not by studying counterfeits, but by studying the real article. That's true, but there's also scripture. Ephesians tells us, that we're actually to take no part in the deeds done in darkness, but to expose them. So, yes, we want to be well versed in the truth and the scripture, but we also do want to be willing to look at lies, to examine deceptions, to know them well enough to be able to not just avoid them, but expose them and refute them so that others might not be deceived. You guys have done that faithfully, and I'm excited to get to do some of that with you. So thanks for coming on to the show, and I look forward to our project coming up soon.
Talk to you later.
Absolutely. Absolutely looking forward to it, and we're going to spend the next month and a half or 2 months drinking from the fire hose. So we'll be operating all cylinders when we come out here to talk about all this stuff.
Awesome. Thanks. God bless.
At Private Family Banking, our mission is to help you set up your own privatized banking system so that you can prosper and pass along tax-free wealth to the next generation and teach them to be financially responsible with that wealth. Your system will guarantee positive and continuous growth of your money, income tax protected for the rest of your life and beyond. Additionally, you will create a pool of capital that can be used to grow additional wealth using the same money in more than one place at the same time. For families, investors, and those near or already in retirement, your system will provide a buffer against market volatility to help you avoid selling off your investment portfolio during prolonged market downturns. Now, for those who are struggling with paying off high interest-bearing credit cards or car loans or student loans, there's no worries. We'll teach you how to use your private family bank to accelerate the payoff of your consumer debt, including a monthly step-by-step guide. Turning post-mill thinking into post-mill action with private family banking. Now that's a good thing. Find out how this powerful approach to a multi-generational wealth building can work for you and your family by emailing banking@privatefamilybanking.com. You'll receive a free ebook and a link to schedule your free 30-minute consultation today.